Hello, DigiDM here. This video is going to cover a few quick tips using 3D Canvas. This video is for beginners, especially if you're interested in submitting a map for the map making contest. We'll cover Z-fighting, locking tiles, and more. So this tip is about Z-fighting. See this a lot in maps. This is an example of Z-fighting. Essentially, it's when a mesh is sharing the same plane as another mesh. So we see this in terrain pieces, on floors. We also see it a lot in walls, and it's a bit jarring. Sometimes we see it at the top here, even when your wall looks real nice. So a couple things you can do here is definitely fiddle with the shape so that way it is butt up next to another shape. You can see even slight Z fighting in there. So I might want to shrink it down just a little bit and really trying to get that to where it's perfectly lined without that. Now we have a gap. So that takes some fiddling. There are many tiles in Bailey Wiki's content which will snap to grid and are designed to fit in such a way that it doesn't cause Z-fighting, and they just snap and makes building things really easy. But you can fiddle with it enough to where you're going to reduce that Z-fighting and possibly reduce gaps. So that's one method you can do, is really just fiddle with it, and then you still might get some Z-fighting at the top if it's overlapped in any way. Another thing you can do that I've done in my corners, and you can see this one's still fighting a little bit, is that you just take one of these walls and just raise it up or shrink it ever so slightly. And that, although it doesn't look as smooth, depending on the terrain piece that you're going for, or the tile, it works really well to not, the Z fighting is going to create more of a draw to the eye than that little bit of a lift there. Same thing with terrain pieces or tile pieces. That is just too much for most people's eyeballs. And so a little shrinking on one side or the other, that's a big gap. But you get the idea, is that you just finagle with it to where it's just slightly off from the other shape, and you can get away with quite a bit with that, as it doesn't draw the eye as much. This tip is about merging and backing up your scene before you merge. So this macro, auto merge all tiles, can be found under the 3D Canvas compendium and 3D Canvas macros. You see auto merge all tiles or unmerge all tiles. Many folks in the Discord have noticed that your maps can get really messed up from this wonderful macro that merges all similar tiles. However, since it does merge features of tiles, then it can create a little bit of chaos. So if I grab my acolyte here and move him to the entrance, you can see that he should be able to move, and when he gets under that awning there, that awning disappears. Now that awning is very similar to this roof over here. So I make sure that I have a backup before I merge. So if you check out my scenes here, I've got pre-merge 1, pre-merge 2. So I'm doing this along the way as I'm building my map. I'm merging tiles, but I'm making a backup before I merge in case I need to go back. And I'll show you why right here. If I go ahead and start to merge these things, and we'll check in with my acolyte again. And now we've seen that those two roofs were merged in a way that is undesirable for what I was going for. So another thing you can do is just do roofs last and then be sure to merge everything before you put roofs together. The last tip I have for beginning map makers for the contest is around locking tiles. So I'm in the tile controls and I am moving my mouse around and just everything is lighting up. So if a DM grabs your map and they just like, you know what, I just want to move this rock here. Of course they would have to unmerge with other rocks, but like it could be tricky if they're just trying to grab something and all of these things are lighting up. So the tip here is to lock down things that don't move. So it's pretty easy to do for some things. You right click and you hit this lock button. Other things that are bigger, the menu is harder to find. So if I take the boardwalk here and if I move around a little bit, it's tricky because it shows up at a certain distance here, and then I want the right side. So I can hover in this and find it that way. An easier way, if you really can't find the control, is using the terrain tool set here and simply clicking lock. And then you can just go through and lock things as they light up. And we'll start to see what that does in a moment here as I lock down my walls, my roofs, anything that's likely solid set piece. And again, the DM can choose to unlock these things if, for example, they wanted players to be able to knock these pedestals over and they wanted to show that in the scene. But I like to lock down all terrain and all pieces that are fairly solid. So walls can be locked down, and definitely terrain pieces, which should be locked already for me. So now, if I click on my tile set, there's a couple of roofs I didn't hit, but you can see how cleaner it is that my scene isn't lighting up with everything that's unlocked. And here's an example, since I didn't do the roofs, is that all that still lights up, but down here I can have the tile selected without everything going a little wild. Well, that's all I have for you today. If you like these short video tips on using 3D Canvas or anything related to 3D Canvas, painting miniatures, that kind of thing, please let me know and I'd be happy to make more. Good luck with the contest.